The perfect mate. Professor X starts developing feelings for Jean Grey.
The Enterprise is hosting a ceremony that will end a war between two groups that we've never heard of before.
There's some special cargo, and the Ambassador Briam requests that only necessary personnel be able to even get close to it.
Riker tells Picard they've picked up a Ferengi distress call, and they beam over to Ferengi right before their ship explodes.
We haven't seen any Ferengi for a while, and as soon as they showed up, I remembered that I was totally okay with that decision. Geordi is showing Briam the temple they've created in the holodeck to host the ceremony, and while they're checking it out, one of the Ferengi sneaks into the cargo hold with the mysterious cargo, while the other bothers everyone, none more so than me. Apparently, the Ferengi in the cargo hold took building lessons from the kid in hero worship, because he ends up knocking down the cargo when he's surprised by Worf.
And I liked his excuse for why he was there.
This is a misunderstanding. I was looking for a barber shop. Apparently, I made an incorrect turn.
The glowing egg they are transporting hatches, and out pops Jean Grey. She immediately fixates on Picard, mistaking him for Ulrich of Vault, the man she is being gifted to as part of the ceremony. So it's the opposite of the early X-Men comics, where Professor X was fixated on Jean Grey.
The woman, Kamala, is a mutant
with the ability to sense what a potential mate wants, what he needs, what gives him the greatest pleasure.
Until she finally imprints upon one final partner for life.
Saying that she is a gift for Ulrich upsets Picard and Riker.
And on the way to her quarters, she explains to Riker that she's emitting a huge amount of pheromones due to her being in the final stage of her sexual maturity.
Riker being the one to take her to her room predictably turns out to be a bad idea. He does eventually manage to pull away from her.
And goes to finish his business on the holodeck.
Beverly and Picard have breakfast together, where Beverly compares Kamala to a prostitute and a slave, and Picard pulls the Prime Directive card.
Let's throw the Prime Directive to the winds. Let's detain her here against her will. Let's destroy any chance of peace between these worlds.
And Beverly informs him that Kamala is being confined to quarters, potentially against her wishes, so Picard goes to check it out.
She immediately starts coming on to him, saying that emerging from stasis early makes it difficult to ignore the feelings she senses from men.
And Picard says it's hard for him to accept that a being can live only as someone else wants them to be.
But she says she lives only to please others and would be incomplete if she were alone.
He suggests that he get to know more about her and her culture, and when she offers to help, he declines and manages to successfully back both himself and his erection out of the room.
Picard goes to talk to Briam about easing her restrictions.
Which Briam doesn't want to do, but Picard does it anyway, and gives her Data as a chaperone since he can't be affected.
Even though he's already had multiple relationships with people.
They then stupidly go to the absolute busiest and most casual part of the ship,
where a bunch of creepy alien guys start hitting on Kamala in a very over-the-top way that was out of place for this show.
Things start to get out of control, but Worf intervenes, even though he's almost swayed himself.
And Kamala and Worf share some seductive growls. Even I was starting to be won over, but I couldn't tell by which one.
Later, Kamala says it would be better if she stayed in her quarters, but requests that Picard come visit her.
She then brings up Shakespeare in France, and I'm surprised Picard didn't just start ripping off his clothes right then.
The Ferengi attempt to bribe Briam for Kamala, telling him that's really the reason they came on the ship.
And when Briam tries to go tell Picard,
there's a struggle, and he smashes headfirst into a glass table. If there's a clear table made out of glass, someone's going to walk into it, or smash it, or something.
Yeah, especially on a ship that gets shaken all the time and people are getting thrown around everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think all the furniture would be bolted down and be made out of...
not glass.
And Picard tells us via Captain's log that the Ferengi have been sent to a starbase.
Picard says they'll have to delay the conference, but Kamala says she only has 2 days to imprint on Ulrich.
She tells Picard he can play Briam's part in the ceremony with her assistance.
We then cut to the goofiest part of this episode, and keep in mind I'm saying that during an episode with the Ferengi in it, when Picard is learning how to play the space marimba for the ceremony.
He and Kamala bond over their history with musical instruments, but not in a sexual way.
What?
Because they're bonding.
Oh, I was tying that part of the statement to the instruments. I was like, what are you talking about?
Well, it could have been that too, if it was Riker and his trombone. Kamala talks about how she was taken from her mother when she was 4 and raised by many tutors and servants who prepared her for her destiny.
And right before they make out, Riker lets Picard know that Ulrich has shown up.
And he turns out to be an arrogant
Picard goes to meet with him. He does ask about Kamala, but makes it clear he's way more interested in the trade agreement.
When Picard tells Kamala about Ulrich, she begs him to stay, and they end up having tea and getting all flirty.
The next morning, Picard meets with Beverly and opens up to her about his inner conflicts and desires. And my question was, why is he talking to Beverly about it, and where is Troy?
He talks about being seduced by Kamala and how she's going to be given to a man who doesn't even seem that interested.
Picard goes to take Kamala to the ceremony, and she reveals that she has already bonded with him.
And will now be as she is forever.
But her sense of duty and empathic abilities will allow her to keep that fact hidden.
And when he says she can't go through with things, she reiterates that she will be ending a war. He reluctantly takes her to the ceremony on the holodeck where she is given over to Ulrich.
And he's pretty torn up.
Afterward, Briam, having recovered, asks Picard how he was able to resist Kamala.
To which Picard answers,
Ambassador, have a safe trip home.
the perfect mate. Overall,
This was an episode with a unique premise that thankfully didn't try to shove in an unnecessary B-plot. The concept was interesting, and I thought all the actors did a good job with it. The only part I thought was kind of stupid was the scene with the alien guys in 10 Forward. I get why it was there, but it didn't feel like it fit. I liked that things didn't get resolved for anyone, and even though Ulrich turned out to be a living cartoon, I liked the implications for how things would go with Kamala, and that they didn't cop out and have some artificial Deus Ex Machina come in at the end with an opportunity for some lame happy ending. I just wish there was a bit more to the story. Too much of the episode was basically the same scenes over and over with Kamala and Picard. I thought Beverly's angle would come into it more at some point, looking at Kamala as a slave or a prostitute, but we never even got a conversation between her and Kamala. And like you said, where was Troy? She's an empath. There could have been a good conversation. What we did get was good though. I gave it a B.
I gave it a B+. You say there was no B-plot, but you forgot about the Ferengi.
Oh, that's true. That's easy to do, I guess.
Yeah. There were probably 10,000 other ways to have Kamala come out of stasis. I don't understand why we needed the Ferengi at all in this episode. Beverly was pushing really hard, knowing nothing about the situation or their culture, but that wasn't entirely surprising. But I also wish there was a conversation between the two of them. It would have generated a different kind of argument than those questions coming from Picard. Why Picard ever allowed himself to be alone with Kamala, especially at the beginning, before he was smitten, was silly. He knew what was going down. And why did the Data thing never come up again? I understand Picard was conflicted internally, but why didn't anyone else suggest Data performing the entire ceremony? I also thought this was a unique episode, and I liked it. It was directed well, and it could have come off as really, really corny. I think Patrick Stewart and Famke Janssen's acting really allowed this one to work.
I'm surprised you didn't have a James Bond thing in there somewhere.
I know that Patrick Stewart would make a great James Bond, but I don't feel like that's appropriate right now.
That's how you want to end it?
Unless you got something.
No, that's fine.
I think we're pretty on the top of this.